A single book has shaken the entire Dance Moms community, reopening wounds many believed had been buried for years. She detailed the comments that targeted her identity, the atmosphere that had shaped her childhood, and the subtle and overt forms of exclusion that she had navigated with quiet resilience. The sudden visibility of these moments transformed the show from a nostalgic memory into a case study of how children navigate systems that prioritize entertainment over well-being. Simultaneously, the media avalanche created an unexpected outcome. Discussions that began with criticism gradually shifted toward broader reflection about the culture of competitive dance, the pressures placed on young performers, and the responsibilities of adults who guide them. Christi's emotional admission that she had been blind to certain experiences resonated deeply, encouraging others to reconsider how they process the struggles of people around them. The discourse moved beyond the individuals involved and became part of a larger dialogue about accountability and empathy. In this intense and ever-expanding conversation, one insight became clear. Nias' memoir did not simply recount the past. It forced the Dance Moms community to acknowledge the hidden layers of a story they thought they understood. And as the media continued to amplify every reaction, every statement, and every moment of reflection, the collective reckoning grew into a phenomenon of its own, shaping the contours of the narrative in real time. As the discussion surrounding Nias' memoir expanded, a decisive turning point began to emerge. The debates that had started as disagreements about courtesy and communication evolved into something far more revealing, a public confrontation with the emotional and structural realities that shaped the Dance Moms environment. These experiences, once dismissed as fragments of competitive drama, now stood as evidence of a broader pattern, one that illuminated the underlying tensions within the cast and production environment. What had initially appeared to be just another eruption of online drama transformed into a moment of collective reckoning, marking the most intense wave of reflection the community had seen in years. The darkest hour of this unfolding situation became clear when Holly's firm and unfiltered response spread rapidly across social platforms. Her message, grounded in both clarity and controlled anger, asserted that individuals who had not taken the time to read the memoir were nevertheless attempting to discredit its content. According to her statement, their reactions shifted attention away from the critical issues of discrimination described by Nia and instead focused on feelings of personal inconvenience. Holly's phrase, "Shame on you. You should be embarrassed," resonated with a striking intensity because it expressed frustration with a pattern that had long existed, the tendency to deflect rather than confront difficult truths. This reaction marked a moment when the emotional undercurrents of the cast resurfaced with unmistakable force. At the same time, Kelly Hyland faced considerable backlash. Viewers interpreted her podcast remarks as dismissive of Nias' experience, especially given the severity of the comments described in the memoir. People questioned why the expectation of a heads-up seemed to take precedence over acknowledging the emotional toll of discriminatory treatment. Yet the book did more than spark public reflection. This public criticism intensified the pressure on Kelly, drawing renewed attention to confrontations from earlier seasons of the show and to unresolved tensions that had existed long before the memoir was published. The situation became not merely a disagreement about communication, but a symbolic confrontation between two understandings of responsibility: the responsibility to respect someone's personal story, and the responsibility to maintain relationships formed under difficult circumstances. The narrative reached its emotional climax when Christi released her YouTube video, which provided a contrasting response that significantly altered the trajectory of the discussion. Her tone, measured and reflective, demonstrated an awareness that had evolved over time. As she recounted her reaction to reading the memoir, she acknowledged her shock at the discriminatory comments Nia endured and admitted her sadness at having been unaware of them. This admission, presented without defensiveness, marked a breakthrough moment in the conversation. It showed that personal growth and accountability were possible even years after leaving the show. Christi's reflections on exclusion added an important layer to the emotional climax. She recognized that Chloe, her own daughter, had experienced moments of exclusion and loneliness, and she expressed regret that she did not fully notice similar patterns affecting Nia. She stated that each mother had been so focused on protecting her own child that she sometimes failed to see beyond the boundaries of her immediate world. It triggered intense reactions from those who had lived through the same years alongside Nia. This realization, delivered with sincerity, served as a mirror for many viewers, highlighting how easily people can overlook the struggles of others when consumed by their own challenges. The reference to the iPad incident deepened the emotional impact of Christie's commentary. She described the event as one of the most difficult scenes she had witnessed, noting the way the producer's actions seemed to prioritize damage control over genuine accountability. As she reflected on the distress shared among the children who were present, her comments underscored the emotional dissonance that permeated the environment. The moment illustrated how structural decisions could overshadow empathy, and how the pressure of maintaining a successful show could obscure the needs of the young performers at its center. This portion of the conversation became a point of awakening for many viewers, who felt compelled to reevaluate moments they had previously interpreted through the lens of entertainment. The clarity with which Christi acknowledged her past limitations revealed a capacity for growth that contrasted with the defensiveness of others. Her statement, "You get all of the flowers, but more importantly, you get the crown," directed toward Nia, symbolized her recognition not only of the pain described in the memoir, but of the strength required to articulate it. As the media reaction continued to expand, the narrative shifted from conflict to transformation. The breakthrough lay not in unanimous agreement, but in the willingness of multiple participants to reconsider their roles within a complex history. Conversations surfaced about responsibility, misunderstanding, and the invisible burdens carried by young performers. By admitting what she could have done differently, Christi reframed the conversation from one of defensiveness to one of accountability. Her perspective demonstrated that acknowledging past blindness is not an admission of guilt, but an act of maturity and empathy. It encouraged viewers to apply the same level of reflection to their own interpretations of the show. This shift marked the final evolution of the unfolding narrative. What began as a dispute about communication transformed into a broader dialogue about responsibility, awareness, and the long-term consequences of environments shaped by pressure and inequality. Nias' memoir became more than a recollection of personal experiences. It became a catalyst for renewed recognition of the emotional complexities embedded in the dance mom's world. The climax of the conversation did not resolve every tension, but it illuminated the possibility of growth, understanding, and meaningful change. The discussions ignited by the release of Bottom of the Pyramid ultimately revealed something far more significant than a resurfacing of old disagreements. They illuminated the emotional depth behind a story that many believed they already understood, and they reminded the Dance Moms community that the experiences of young performers extend far beyond what appears on camera. Nia's memoir did not simply describe past events. It offered a window into the internal landscape of a child navigating an environment shaped by high expectations, intense pressure, and uneven systems of support. Kelly Hyland voiced frustration on a recent podcast episode, expressing disappointment that she and others were not informed ahead of time about being mentioned in the memoir. By choosing to articulate her journey with honesty and clarity, she invited readers to reconsider what it means to grow up within a structure that prioritizes entertainment over emotional well-being. One of the most meaningful outcomes of this public conversation is the recognition that no participant, whether mother or child, had a complete understanding of the environment at the time. Christi's admissions about her blind spots, Holly's unwavering commitment to Nias' truth, and even the defensiveness expressed by Kelly reflect the complexity of trying to interpret events that unfolded quickly, under stress, and within a system controlled by production decisions. The memoir has emphasized the importance of empathy, reminding viewers that lived experience cannot be measured solely through visible moments or edited footage. Each individual carried burdens that were often unseen, and the process of revisiting these memories has shown how important it is to acknowledge the difference between intention and impact. The aftermath of the memoir's release has also reignited discussions about structural issues within the entertainment industry, particularly the imbalance of contracts, compensation, and agency for young performers. Nias' description of limited financial compensation, extended contractual obligations, and restricted control over her own image speaks to broader challenges faced by minors in reality television. As viewers reflect on this information, the conversation has expanded to include a more critical understanding of the systems that shaped not only Dance Moms, but many similar productions. This recognition underscores the importance of advocating for transparency, fairness, and emotional protection for children who find themselves in the public eye. Yet, despite the intensity of the debates that followed, the most lasting impression is the sense of maturity and growth that emerged from the individuals involved. Her remarks, which she delivered without hesitation, quickly stirred additional controversy, raising questions about fairness, perspective, and the right to narrate one's lived experiences. The public responses, particularly Christie's thoughtful reflection, demonstrate that acknowledging past limitations is not a weakness, but an act of accountability. The willingness to examine mistakes, understand overlooked moments, and offer support to those who faced greater challenges is a reminder that change often begins with awareness. The memoir has become a catalyst for empathy, urging the community to move beyond defensiveness and toward a deeper understanding of the experiences of others. As the Dance Moms community continues to process the revelations and emotions stirred by Nias' memoir, one truth remains clear. The story has expanded beyond the boundaries of a television show. It has become a reflection on resilience, responsibility, and the enduring impact of childhood experiences. The discussions that have emerged are not merely about revisiting the past, but about learning from it and recognizing the need for compassion in environments where pressure can obscure humanity. What do you think about the reflections that have unfolded, and how do you interpret the emotional journey revealed through this memoir? Share your thoughts below, and join the conversation as the community continues to explore the lessons that can be learned from both the challenges and the triumphs that shape this story. In contrast, Holly, Nias' mother, stepped forward on social media to affirm that neither she nor her daughter owed anyone a warning. She emphasized that the book is not a collection of accusations, but a personal chronicle of growth, pain, and resilience, shaped by circumstances that others may not have witnessed. This clash of viewpoints signaled that the emotional landscape surrounding Dance Moms remains as complex as ever, with old dynamics resurfacing as each participant reckons with their memories. The release of Nias' memoir, Bottom of the Pyramid, did not arrive quietly. But behind the glamour and the excuses, what mechanisms are really driving this crisis? We will analyze every detail from the initial mistakes to the irreversible damage to see how the entertainment world works and how an icon is redefined. The emotional tremors that followed the release of Nias' memoir did not erupt from a single moment of surprise. They originated from the years of unresolved tension embedded within the Dance Moms environment, tensions that many participants had internalized without fully understanding their long-term impact. To uncover why this book has generated such a powerful reaction, it is necessary to examine the roots of the conflict, the dynamics that shape the cast, and the unspoken hierarchies that define the earliest seasons of the series. At the center of this renewed discussion is Nias' decision to openly describe the discriminatory language and behavior that she experienced during her time on the show. According to her account, the most painful moments were not always the dramatic confrontations captured on television, but the quieter remarks that targeted her identity, including comments about her hair and her appearance. One line in particular, which she recounts in her book, implied that she should wish for what was described as white girl hair. The weight of such a statement, directed at a young performer who was already navigating immense pressure, becomes clearer when viewed through the lens of childhood development and visibility. The language carried implications far beyond the competitive context, and it introduced a narrative about belonging that Nia was forced to confront alone. It entered the public conversation like a sudden gust of wind, lifting the veil off familiar memories and forcing an entire fandom to re-examine what had been accepted, minimized, or overlooked. These revelations form the core of Nias' story, and they raise questions about responsibility within the cast and the production environment. Why did these moments go unchallenged? Why were they not addressed more directly? Nias' memoir does not accuse individuals of deliberate harm, rather, it documents how harmful systems can remain intact when participants focus primarily on their own survival. Through this perspective, her experience becomes both personal and systemic, shaped by decisions made by adults who are each navigating their own challenges within a demanding show. Kelly Hyland's response, delivered on her podcast, highlights this complexity. She expressed frustration that she did not receive prior notice about being mentioned in the memoir, stating that her daughters were not present for the majority of the events described. From Kelly's viewpoint, the fairness of recounting past experiences is connected to whether all individuals affected were given a chance to prepare for public discussion. Her remark suggested a belief that courtesy should have been extended because the book involved multiple families who shared the screen for years. However, Holly's response offered a contrasting interpretation of responsibility. Within hours of the book reaching readers, online forums reignited, commentary channels surged with new content, and former cast members found themselves drawn back into a narrative they had once tried to leave behind. In a TikTok video, she emphasized that Nias' lived experience is her own to share, and that neither she nor her daughter is obligated to obtain permission from other cast members to describe what occurred. Holly asserted that some of the criticism directed at the memoir came from individuals who had not even read the book, which in her view detracted from the seriousness of the issues raised. Her message underscored a central argument. The memoir exists to address discrimination and mistreatment, not to reopen interpersonal conflicts or resurrect old interpersonal grievances. The divergence between Kelly and Holly's reactions illustrates a deeper divide that existed even during filming. Each mother operated within a high-pressure environment that demanded near-constant advocacy for their children. As a result, it became easy for cast members to overlook the experiences of others. Christi, who initially remained quiet during Kelly's on-air complaints, later acknowledged this dynamic in her own YouTube video. She stated that she had been unaware of many of the comments directed at Nia and admitted that reading about them for the first time made her feel a sense of regret. Her emotional reaction, described with honesty and clarity, revealed how little many parents knew about what occurred when their children were separated into different areas of the studio. This acknowledgement points to a structural issue that extended far beyond interpersonal misunderstanding. The Dance Moms community, a space already known for loyalty, intensity, and complicated nostalgia, responded with a mixture of shock, validation, and defensive outrage. The studio environment, as described in the memoir and by other former cast members, operated through a division of space and control. Children often trained under pressure while parents waited in a separate viewing area, meaning not everyone saw or heard every interaction. The lack of full visibility created a fragmented understanding of the environment, and individuals frequently responded only to the events that directly involved their own children. Over time, this contributed to blind spots that allowed harmful patterns to persist. Another significant element in the root cause of the current conflict is the contractual framework that governed the earliest seasons of the show. Nia revealed that she and her mother earned less than $1,000 United States dollars per week combined before taxes during their initial 6-week contract. The agreement granted them no rights to any of the content they helped create and allowed the production company to extend their commitment for up to 7 full seasons without any requirement to renegotiate. This financial imbalance is further highlighted by reported figures indicating that Abby Lee Miller earned approximately $20,000 United States dollars per episode during the same period. These details illuminate a critical aspect of the tension between the so-called OG girls and dancers who joined later in the series. According to Christi, later cast members, including those who speak positively about their Dance Moms experience, operated under different contracts that offered more flexibility and better compensation. Many viewers stated that the revelations were disturbing, yet unsurprising, because they aligned with the uneasy moments they had sensed on screen. This distinction explains why some individuals look back on their participation with fondness, while others recall intense stress and emotional strain. The experiences were not uniform, not because one group exaggerated or minimized, but because structural conditions genuinely differed across seasons. When all these factors converge, they reveal a complex interplay of identity, pressure, visibility, and contractual obligation. Nia's memoir did not create these issues, it merely placed a spotlight on the conditions that shaped them. Her willingness to articulate her experience has reawakened conversations that were left unresolved, and it has challenged the community to reconsider how young performers were affected by systems that prioritize ratings, drama, and production value over emotional well-being. The release of Nias's memoir did more than reopen old conversations. It ignited an immediate and sustained response across social media platforms, commentary channels, podcasts, and fan communities that had remained active long after the original episodes of Dance Moms concluded. What unfolded was not a simple exchange of opinions, but a full-scale media avalanche in which every participant, from former cast members to longtime viewers, reassessed their understanding of what had occurred behind studio doors. The public reaction became a powerful force of its own, shaping narratives and revealing the deep emotional ties that still bind the Dance Moms audience to the individuals who once appeared on the show. The initial wave of commentary focused on Kelly Hyland's remarks. Her podcast episodes circulated rapidly, prompting immediate discussion about whether her expectations were reasonable. Others expressed amazement at the emotional depth behind situations that had once been framed as entertainment. Many viewers argued that it was unnecessary for Nia to provide advance notice, emphasizing that personal memoirs are intended to document lived experience rather than seek approval from every individual involved. Others expressed sympathy for Kelly, suggesting that transparency among former cast members could have prevented misunderstanding. This divide reflected a familiar pattern within the fan base, where loyalty to specific mothers often influences interpretation of events. As this conversation unfolded, Holly emerged as a central voice in the evolving discourse. Her TikTok response expanded the scope of the discussion, redirecting attention to the themes of the memoir rather than interpersonal disputes. According to her statement, criticism of the book by individuals who had not read it distracted from the urgent issues of discriminatory behavior and emotional mistreatment. She emphasized that the memoir was not a collection of accusations, but a narrative shaped by Nias' personal truth. This message resonated widely, inspiring many viewers to revisit earlier episodes of the show with a more critical perspective and encouraging renewed reflection on comments and actions that once seemed insignificant. While Kelly's comments drew intense scrutiny, Christi reaction added another layer to the unfolding media storm. Her initial silence during the podcast led many to wonder whether she endorsed Kelly's views. The contrast between what was televised and what was truly experienced became a powerful reminder that reality television rarely captures the entirety of reality. However, her subsequent YouTube video provided clarity and shifted public sentiment significantly. In the video, Christi spoke with a level of vulnerability and reflection that contrasted with the defensive tone of the podcast. She acknowledged that certain comments described in the book were deeply troubling, particularly the remark directed at Nia about her hair. She described the discomfort of realizing that she had been unaware of incidents occurring in the studio despite being physically present in the building. This admission humanized her response and demonstrated that participants may have held incomplete understandings of the environment. Christi's discussion of the infamous iPad incident further amplified the media response. The event, which had been referenced in Kelly's lawsuit against Abby Lee Miller and the show's producers, resurfaced as viewers connected the dots between the allegations and the emotional landscape described in Nias' memoir. According to the legal complaint, producers allegedly distributed iPads to the girls the day after a racially insensitive remark had been made toward Nia. This gesture, presented as a gift, was interpreted as an attempt to deflect attention rather than meaningfully address the situation. Christi's recounting of the moment, describing it as one of the most difficult scenes she had witnessed, intensified public concern about the environment in which the girls were working. What gave the memoir its emotional gravity was not only the events described, but the clarity with which Nia reclaimed her story. Her reflections underscored how structural decisions made behind the scenes influence the emotional experiences of both children and parents. The distinction between the experiences of original cast members and later arrivals also became a topic of significant discussion online. In her video, Christi noted that dancers who joined the series in later seasons operated under different contractual terms. This observation carried substantial implications. It suggested that individuals who look back on their dance mom's experience positively may not be minimizing the challenges faced by others. Instead, they may have genuinely participated under conditions that were less restrictive, less stressful, and more financially beneficial. This point caused a ripple effect across social media as viewers debated the fairness of comparing experiences without acknowledging how contractual differences shape the level of control exerted over participants. As conversations expanded, fans revisited earlier episodes, compiling timestamps and clips that seemed to align with Nias' account. Online threads analyzed body language, editing choices, and long-forgotten comments. The story evolved into a collective investigation, with viewers working to reconstruct the emotional realities behind televised scenes. In some cases, individuals expressed regret for not recognizing the implications of certain remarks when they originally aired,